Hello, my fellow seekers. Welcome to Into the Work, therapy for empaths, seekers, and the intuitively driven, where you have front row seats to therapy sessions and expert interviews that will help you define the important work that you're here to do. So I guess you actually have something better than front row seats. You practically have a seat on my couch. That's right, you will have unrestricted access to actual sessions with real people, exploring real life issues. You will continue to be inspired by powerful conversations with experts and healers that might just share exactly what it is that you need to hear to get unstuck. I am Michelle Pauverman. I am a recovering people pleaser and former anxiety-driven empath, turned now mostly grounded psychotherapist and intuitive coach. I have been helping people for almost 20 years manage their limiting beliefs and anxiety to finally stop the self-sabotage and step into their gifts. I created this podcast, Into the Work, to give you a place to learn more about yourself and give you actionable strategies to finally move those roadblocks holding you back so you can go for what you want. Above all else, my hope is that this podcast is a catalyst for your awakening. If you're listening, you've already taken a step towards getting off of autopilot, and our next steps together will be taken episode by episode, waking you up to the possibilities, the new ways of thinking and being, so that you can stretch into that next level of your story. The spark has already been lit, and my friend, this is a journey from spark to brilliance. So together, let's light a fire. Hello, welcome back to the show. Today, we're talking about how to teach people that you love to be good listeners. This is such an important topic because so many of us struggle taking up space, being heard, and sharing our vulnerabilities in fear of really not receiving what we need in return. And this can really get in the way of our relationship. So I'm really excited to do this episode for you. Let's start by breaking down why this is important for you. You're an empath. You're sensitive, you're a deep feeler, you have spidey senses that can sometimes even tell you what someone's going to say before they even say it. And maybe, typically, you are a space holder for other people, and it is such a sacred gift. This is a gift that you desire in return. You want somebody else to hold space for you. Whether you allow it or not is certainly up for debate and something you need to look at. But regardless, you deeply yearn for it. We all do. And if you don't allow it, let me just be clear here. By this, I mean you have difficulty receiving, right? So being in the center of attention or where you're taking up too much space is uncomfortable. So you kind of dismiss it. You kind of quickly change the subject to get yourself out of the limelight kind of thing. But you do yearn for it regardless because you have created this illusion that you are needless and comfortable mattering less than others, perhaps, but therefore you have a Grand Canyon, dry as the desert size well of need around mattering and being seen. That is something for you to pay attention to. However, for the conversation today, we are talking about how you can train, teach, support the people in your life to be good listeners. Sometimes we have partners that are less than good listeners, right? I'm going to be talking about your partner a lot in the show, but this can be about friends, this can be about family, siblings, coworkers. Honestly, it really can fit for all the relationships in your life, but I'm going to talk about partnership here because it is the most important relationship in our life. And I think if you have a partner, then you'll want to be tuning into that. So if you are coupled with a human who is not such a deep thinking space holder, waiting intuitively to mirror back to you what they hear and see in you, oh, doesn't that sound so dreamy? What if your partner is your typical fixer-upper, right? Fix it all up. And whose main tool in your times of need is the good old solution, right? You just need to do this and you'd be fine. Then you just get annoyed, that comes up and then you get annoyed and you say, never mind, and they think you're being difficult. So here's the thing. We need to learn how to teach our partners how to be good listeners. And if that doesn't work, just have them listen to my episode here and have them take note. Because I'm going to hit upon some really important things, new ways of looking at it, some particular examples of what you guys can do differently, and how you can actually demonstrate it, how you can actually understand a little more deeply about what's going on. So let's get started. First off, I want to point out to you that there is a very common desire that most of us empaths have that we don't know how to articulate. And if we don't understand that this even is our core desire, then we certainly don't know to articulate it, right? So I am going to tell you right now that deep down, what you likely truly want as an intuitive type, empathic type, space holder, deep down, what you truly want from another human is someone who knows emphatically that the answer that you're seeking is within you. But you just need them to gently coax it out of you with some skillfully placed questions. It's that simple, right? And yet that is so difficult for us to figure out. But when you think or say, I don't want your opinions or solutions or problem-solving attempts. I just want you to listen, okay? Your counterparts, your partners, your friends, your coworkers, your family, whoever, if they are not naturally, quote unquote, good listeners, they look at you like you have 10 heads and think, why are you talking to me about this if you don't want my opinion? They can't fathom why you wouldn't want their opinion. Why else would you come to them? So because they are fixers, because, they potentially oversimplify things in order to just move on, it is because they want to take action, because feeling useless is painful for them. Fixers draw worth from saving the day, period. That is their action. And action feels good to the hero. But for the sake of this conversation, okay, if your partner is a bit of a know-it-all, and I want to say that with love, okay? Know-it-alls have just found a way to be worthy. That is how they draw worth. That's how they got positive attention, is knowing things, right? So they say things like, I usually know what people need before they even do. If they would just listen to me, then, we could all just move on and everything would be great. Just sitting there listening can feel like torture for their ego, okay? Just sitting there listening is like doing nothing, a waste of their time. The ego is striving to say, just fix it. Just tell them what you know and tell them to move on. They have a real hard time. It can be really difficult for them to actually just be in that. And so to them, many times their frustration around not being helpful leaves them feeling like you are rejecting their help. I'm sure you've been through this before. So, that fixer person wants to just jump in and tell you what to do. And when you reject that, they feel like you're rejecting them because that's what they draw worth on. That's what they are here to do, is to fix it. And so when you don't allow them to do that, is how they see it. Not that they're not seeing that your needs aren't being met. They're just seeing and feeling rejection. So they don't typically see that there are actions that they can take to be an active listener. In fact, a lot of people who are fixers, when they learn that there are actions they can do that are helpful, it actually takes a huge part of the stress off of being there for you and being a good listener. And we don't typically know how to explain that to them as the problem. So they want to take action. They want to do something with what you're talking about. And they don't know that there are action steps they can take that you'll love. And you don't know how to explain it to them. That's the communication gap. And that's the huge problem that we have. And over time, it wears us down. It can really impact our relationship. So let's dive into some of the things that are going to be helpful for you to teach them, helpful for you to understand, and things that you both can be doing differently, okay? So first, I'm going to start with these top 3 tips that I tell anybody who's saying, I want my relationship to feel deeper. I want to feel closer. I want to feel more connected to my partner. And I feel like that's really difficult. And this, again, can be for friends or anybody else. So the first thing that I'm going to tell you, and these are potentially things, I always say this, but, learning is also sometimes remembering. But these are things that you may have heard before, but really need to hear again. So the first is stop relating. So we're going to teach our partners that when I'm talking about hurting my arm, and then you come back at me by telling me how you hurt your arm and what happened yesterday on the basketball court, or what happened yesterday, with this other situation, that just took the attention from being on me and going back to you. And and then if I relate to you, well, you know what it's like for me, we have a ping pong match happening, right? We have a ping pong match happening because you're relating and then I'm relating and then you're relating and I'm relating. And nobody is being held. Nobody is being truly heard. The space is not there. And it's exhausting. And this is something that I hear a lot when it comes to also people talking with their parents, especially as we all age and things, as we're all getting older, that they can feel like it becomes more difficult because your parents are relating more and less listening and less holding space when maybe that's what you need in the relationship. And so just teaching somebody to stop relating can be the biggest thing that can happen in a relationship if you have a big relator. I find this in friendships a lot. And people have a hard time, like, how do I tell her that or tell them that without hurting their feelings? And I usually tell people as a tip, as an example, use yourself. So let's say you're in a friendship and your friend is like constantly ping-ponging with you. Every time you say something's wrong, they say something's wrong. And so you can say, okay, will you humor me today? I'm trying to do some work on myself. And I realize that I'm doing a lot of relating. Okay, even if it's not true. You can take the parts of you that feel like you can say that and be aligned with it. But I want you to say, I'm doing work on this in my relationships. I'm trying to work doing less relating with each other and more time listening and being. And this is the next one, learn the skill of curiosity. So number 2 is learning the skill of curiosity and teaching it to our partners. Some of our partners even have professions that require them to go down rabbit holes of questions, of being curious and learning from, whatever their work they're doing. And maybe they're doing research. Maybe there's so much you can relate to in their own lives when you're trying to tell them that you really need them to be more curious with you. And this is the opposite of relating, right? So if you ask your partner to be curious with you, you're just asking them to ask some questions. Just act like you're just curious, not that you know, but that you don't know and you're curious to find out. Because again, the deep desire is that you have the answer inside you and that you have somebody to hold the space to pull that desire up to the surface so you can say, oh my God, that's the answer. That's what I need. This is what I need to do. And we really just need the space to figure that out most of the time. And when someone else tries to tell us, a lot of the times it doesn't resonate. What's going to align and resonate with you is what comes from you. And it's not to say that it isn't helpful to have some other people give you examples or try to help you problem solve. It's just, I think you get me, right? Like this can happen. And it's really important that we teach people that we're close to the skill of being curious. And so I'll say, even just start, if you don't know what to say, just start by saying, wait a minute, tell me more about that. What did you mean by that? And what happened then? And what did you feel about that? Asking questions like, it doesn't have to be, sometimes when I tell people or I'm trying to teach someone how to do this, they get real formal. They're like, well, husband, I think that I'm wondering if, what you're saying is, it doesn't need to be that way. I mean, it can just be you two talking and you just getting curious and asking questions, and in that curiosity, it can also be another tip if they feeling stuck is to just at least mirror back or reflect what you hear. So it sounds like you are saying you're really okay with what happened today, but on the other hand, it really sounds like you're not. So where are you at? That is a good question, right? So learning to just kind of ask questions, be curious, reflect back the things you're seeing and hearing. And the last thing I will say is a rule that I tend to tell people that's really important is to abide by the rule for each of you. This is something you're going to agree upon, that we're both going to try to understand first and be understood second. Okay? Understand first and be understood second. That in itself can be huge. That is just the epitome of respect. And we're going to get into this in a minute, but that is the entire reason why you're having conversations. It's not to win an argument, it's to understand your person, your people. So here's some things you can do to be more successful. One, I'm going to tell you off the bat that I'm going to ask you to really try to be patient with your person and really look for the good. Okay? I want you to prioritize the relationship over the outcome and the results, because you can ask this and they can struggle with it. And they may not be great at it right away. And so seeing any efforts and giving positive reinforcement towards any efforts you see and saying, wow, that actually felt so good. Thank you. That actually makes them feel good. And remember back, they need to understand, fixers especially, need to understand that there are actions they can take that on some level feel like they're solving a problem. Even if they're just asking questions, even if they're just getting to the answer within you, like excavating it, right? Going for it. And so that in itself helps them feel like they're actively doing something, which alleviates their anxiety, allows them to feel useful. And so you want to go ahead and make sure that, you're providing that. So you're giving them good positive feedback. And number two, I kind of just said this, but because we know they draw worth from fixing it, we do need to kind of teach them how to draw worth from holding space, right? So I mentioned the complimenting or, sharing positive feedback, but I also want you to look at gestures of connection. So when they are doing these things, like asking questions or trying their hardest to be there, even if you're like, this doesn't even feel right, you don't feel like you're totally authentic in this, I want you to give them body language that shows that you are connected versus disconnected. So eye contact, just show it in your face. Lean in closer, stay connected. There's touch, there's holding a hand, there's, whatever it is that you can do in the moment to at least signal that they're on the right track is helpful. So number three is, I want you to focus on the behavior, not the person. So when you're explaining something, let's say you're in a conversation with somebody and you want them to be a good listener. And in this situation, you need them to be a good listener, but you need to talk about stuff that's conflict between the two of you, right? And so if you have to discuss something that's bothering you, something that's coming up for you, that's important, that you feel like you really need to get connected in, then I want you to focus on the behavior, not the person. I want you to use that feedback sandwich. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but basically it's like you're building a sandwich in that communication, right? So one is something good. In the middle is something that's like, this is what I need from you to be different. And then you end on, but I really noticed you did these things that were really great and I appreciate that. And so that little sandwich there that you're delivering when you have to ask for something that might be hard for that person to receive allows them to feel safe in hearing it. Because again, It's not, you're displaying that it is not a character flaw. It is not a criticism towards their being. It is a behavior that's not working out so well, right? So we don't get into the you suck conversations, which is sort of the next one, but same thing. You suck conversations are not fair. When you're saying you, that doesn't work. And so we got to be careful with people who aren't good communicators or space holders, because they can even be more quicker to jump into a defense mode, right? To feel like they don't have the tools to say, wait a minute, tell me more about that. Like, I don't understand, right? So they can get right back into feeling triggered. And so using that feedback sandwich, or just really separating the behavior from the person and using this is what I see, this is what I feel, this is how that, this is how I feel when that happened, or how I felt. And I don't like feeling that way. And really expressing yourself honestly, but making sure you're making it about the behavior, not the person. And it's not a you suck conversation. Okay. So the next thing I want to just point out that you can do to be helpful is speak clearly and directly. And I'm also plugging a couple things in this. I want you to ask your partner, your person, your friend to just put the cell phone away, turn the TV off. When you're trying to talk to somebody and they start multitasking, or they just continue to multitask as they're talking to you, how hard do you feel during that time, right? They're chopping something, they turn their back on you, they're making dinner, and you're trying to tell them something that's important to you. And so that is a setup for failure. It's a setup for you to feel rejected. And a lot of times what happens for us is that we do feel hurt and rejected. And that person's maybe scrolling their phone, or their eyes are wandering to the TV because the TV is so addictive, right? And our inclination can be like, never mind, and walk away hurt. And well, you don't want to hear me. That's it. And dismiss it. And we need to stop doing that. We need to stop giving up. We need to stop letting our wounds kind of take over and getting reactive. And we need to start using our voices, standing in our power, and truly asking for what we need. Honey, I need to talk to you. Can we shut the TV off for 5 minutes? Hey, friend, I had something that's really bothering me. Do you mind if we talk about it for 5 minutes and just shut everything down, or put our phones down for a second? Because and then you do the sandwich, right? I care for you so much, right? And this is the thing that happened, but I really appreciate how you did A, B, C, and D. So that is a way that you can kind of be helpful, especially while you're trying to help them grow these skills. You're making it safe, right? You're making it safe, and you're making it so that you're showing up and you're walking your walk and your talk, right? This is the last piece here in terms of what you need to remember, is that when you're talking about something you care about, if you have a conflict that's happening in particularly, and you really want that person to hold some space and hear you out, you want to ask, let's not interrupt each other. Let's really let each other say the things we need to say and hold space respectfully. Because here's the deal. It's not about who's right or wrong. If those are your rules, everyone loses. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's not about winning the argument. It's not about walking away feeling like you made your point, you're right. It's not about crushing someone else's spirit. It's not about winning the fight. It's truly about understanding this person and being understood. That is the entire point of any of this, is I want to feel more deeply that I am understood, and I want to display more deeply that I understand. If you can teach your partner to take actions around simply being understood and understanding more deeply, that is the goal. It's not to fix it. It's not the solution. I could walk away from this conversation still not knowing what to do, but wow, do I feel so connected to you and so good that we just had that conversation. It really got some juices flowing by me being able to, and that will come to me, that answer. And so understanding and being understood is the goal. And if your partners, if your friends, if the people in your life can recognize there's actions they can take, there's things they can do that can be helpful, then I think their anxiety will be less. It is still going to take time because some people just have such strong habits and so kind of deep beliefs, like we talked about, being like being somebody who's always got the answer. If that's what your worth is based on, your self-esteem, if that's something that's really important to you, it's going to be really hard for you. For example, it's going to be really hard for you to stop going in and fixing, but just have some patience. If you're finding that there is a significant deficit in your partner with an ability to stay present, if you're finding there's mental health issues getting in the way, if you're finding that you're having a hard time, either one of you is having a hard time tolerating the discussion, it goes right to being defensive, everybody's feeling criticized, you struggle to stand in your power and ask for what you need, it can be super triggering to ask for what you need, to be, if you're not used to that, if you can't even start the conversation. I want to tell you, therapy is amazing. Couples therapy can be amazing. And if you want to introduce couples therapy to your partner or it's going to be a partner thing likely, but if you want to introduce therapy, I want you to say that you tell your partner that you both have the same goals. The goals of therapy is to not figure out who is wrong. The goal of therapy is, how can we have more fun together? How can we play more? How can we laugh more? How can we feel more connected and have deep conversations that kick ass and make us feel amazing as a couple, right? Like, that is what it's about. It is not about going in there, because a lot of times other people feel like they're going to be kind of the villain, And if you're really good at, if you're really good at communicating your emotions and your partner is not, then it's scary going to therapy because they're going to go circles around them, Like, this is a real vulnerable thing for them. And so really trying to be respectful of that and let them know that you're not going to take advantage of that. And that the goal is to play more, have more fun, and enjoy this relationship and create a new one in the process, maybe. I think that this is a really important topic for so many of us. And I think that just applying some of these things might make a difference. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I really appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to Into the Work Therapy for Empaths and Seekers. Don't forget to grab your free gift, your Shadow Work Transformation Bundle, at michellepoverman.com. I've included everything you need to get started to break through the patterns of self-sabotage and finally start to heal the parts of yourself that are getting in the way of truly reaching your potential. From a powerful meditation designed to help you meet and embrace your shadow self, to the guide that's full of curated prompts and important questions to support you on this journey. This really can be the work for you to unmask the root cause of all the issues you've been experiencing, honestly, and start to feel free to believe in yourself and go for what you want. The link for this free bundle is in the show notes. And if you like this episode, I would be so grateful if you could take a moment and rate, click and follow, and leave a review. Of course, you can always follow me on socials at Michelle Poverman. And keep in mind, as you embark on your journey from spark to brilliance, remember, the universe is always conspiring in favor of your awakening. Everything that's happening is in support of you lighting your own fire within. So until we meet again, may your path be well lit and your heart be guided. Shine bright, seekers. Until next time.